David, nice to meet you. I'm
Good to
Dave.
meet you.
Yeah, nice to
Yes,
meet you.
yes.
Do you listen to the show?
I listened to the show. Yeah,
Good.
I listened to you when you were on 97.1.
Yeah, sure.
For a while.
20
And then-
years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you, first of all, you're close to my age. We're within a year of each other.
Yeah.
So I like to start these things out with childhood. Let's just go
Okay.
chronologically. And I believe, and I'm curious if you believe, and I tell my kids this all the time, that while every generation has a reason to love their childhood, I think you and I hit the lottery. I think we had the best era of childhood. I wouldn't have wanted to be born earlier. They had rough times. I
right.
wouldn't have wanted to be born later like my kids because
Right.
things are kind of crazy. Do you agree that we had the perfect childhood?
So I think I had a really good childhood. My dad was in construction.
Like my dad.
Yeah. So growing up, my father was a contractor in St. Charles. He moved off the farm when he was probably 24, 25. Him and my mom got married, moved to St. Charles, tried to make it in farming. That didn't work with the family farm. So once he got into St. Charles, ended up in carpenter trade and loved it and stayed with it his whole life to the day he died.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, he was always trying to do something, build something. We had a successful business in St. Charles for years. At one point in the 70s, they built 52 houses. They started one and finished one a week. And he built the homes that we lived in, built an apartment building that later I bought just about 12, 13 years ago. It was growing up in that around the business, the family business. So from the time if you could push a broom, you were out pushing the broom on the job. You were sweeping floors. He always found something for you to do. And there were 7 kids in my family. And
Where are you in the birth order?
I'm right in the middle.
There you go.
Yeah, right. So, and I get the middle child. Apparently, I have that syndrome. I didn't know I had
didn't know you had it.
But long story short, it just. And so we did. We spent a lot of time working on jobs. He custom built homes was his forte, and he, like I say, really enjoyed it. He was well respected.
Did he teach you a lot?
He did. He taught me. So, in that, to get back to your point of when you grow up, so there was a lot of kids coming up through high school. It's probably where if school was out at 2:30, you were expected to be on the job at 3.
Wow.
And then you worked until sometimes 10 o'clock that night. We just did.
Yeah.
And at times I was, just, man, everybody else is doing this or doing that and playing sports. I didn't, but the things I learned helped me so much later.
Yeah.
It was the amazing the things that somebody will show you and you don't realize or appreciate at the time, and then down the road. You sit down and you're like, wow, how did I know that? Oh, yeah, because Dad and I did this. Or it was a wonderful time for me.
It really set you up for your life.
It did. It truly did. So I stayed in the building business. I have several clients that either have rental properties that we help to maintain. We take care of they have maintenance people in it, but we go in and do the remodeling and what have you if they have major problems. But and then I have some rental property of my own. My sons are both in the trade. One's HVAC, the other is in construction, and is kind of doing the same thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
And he's working his way up in it and getting his own properties and my daughter, she's done several things. The biggest thing that she's done that has been wonderful is how she's raising her daughters, with the idea that the world's a big place and there's a lot of opinions and you got to sort through them. And she's much more candid than I have ever been with her. And she has an 18-year-old daughter that has spent her senior year in high school going to college. She's taken several college courses, which I was just happy to get through high school, much less by my senior year. I was like, see, if I had this many credits, I could take one less class. And she's like, no, I got to get more. So my daughter's done a wonderful job bringing her up, and she has a 12-year-old daughter as well that is got a lot of that mindset. I think she'll be a good person. I think they're both good people, which to me is a lot.
Couldn't agree more. Today is my daughter's 20th birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I don't want to get emotional on your video, but it is such a sense of accomplishment, which I know you get when you raise your kids, they get to adulthood,
right? And
you realize, whew, not only did I do it, but these are great human beings.
Yeah. They can think for themselves. We don't. There's a lot of things that my daughter and I don't know that we disagree on. We have different approaches to.
Sure.
There are some things we do disagree on that, but it's that ability to sit down in a room with somebody of different opinion and still have a conversation. To me, that's important if anybody's going to move forward.
What do you feel like your parents did outside of what we've already talked about that they really got it right?
I think exactly that. I think understanding that their kids, the world was going to be a place where you're going to have a lot of different views. And my mother, who grew up actually in Wood River when she was young, and then they ended up moving to Alton, was very, you knew exactly where she stood. If there was something to be said, she would tell you, this is exactly how it is. My dad was a little more diplomatic, but he's still strong-willed. And I think in listening to your show, your parents are kind of that same way.
Very much.
They had their opinions, and that's just how it was. I think that's the difference between today's world and where they grew up. Yeah. And I don't know if that's at World War II. You had to be right. What you said had to matter. And today, I think it seems like, at least I try to get across to my kids that you have to take a person's opinion. If you don't agree with it, be respectful in how you don't agree with it.
Yeah, our parents' generation, and our parents in particular, had a way, my dad especially, he would give you his opinion, but he'd only give it once.
Right.
And you better not give him more than one opinion.
Yeah.
That's just the way people, and men in particular of that generation, dealt with each other.
Yeah.
You know, if we worked on a job site and I was constantly giving you my opinion, at some point we're going to have a talk.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And do I think that, I think that's where leadership comes from a lot of times. I think that somebody has to, you can call it salesmanship. This is my opinion and this is how I'm going to make it right. But I think having that backbone to say, I don't know how many times growing up, you can do anything. You have to grow a backbone to do it.
Yeah.
If you're going to do this, whether it's kick a habit, get a job, raise a family, you're going to need a backbone.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, I do think my parents got that right in a lot of ways. I mean, you can always go through and go, well, we should have did this different, or we should have done that, or kids aren't supposed to do manual labor when they're 10 years old. I think it's the approach that, and for me, the approach my dad took was, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to do this. And there were days that were hard. And sometimes on the way home, we stopped and we got a shake.
Wow.
Yeah.
Magic.
And that was cool.
Magic.
Or every day on the job, you got a picnic. You may not like, what you're doing, but you got a picnic that day. So there were things that my mom and dad both did that made, I think were good choices for us.
Are your parents still around?
No, they passed away. My mom passed away 15 years ago, and my dad passed away 2 years ago.
How was that losing your dad?
So being with my dad, he was 91, and he had all of his faculties. He knew who was in the room. I mean, he was there. We'd go out to eat for the last couple of years that he was alive. I'd go over on Wednesday nights and we'd take him out to eat. And so coming up in the business, in 1990, I incorporated the business, and then it was a 5-year buyout. So they say the partnership's the hardest ship to sail. And that was truly, if we had odds, where I wanted to go with the company and where he has already done with the company, it was really difficult at times. But we made it through, and everybody has their rough moments, but we made it through. And later, I think he respected the ideas that I had, and I've always respected the ideas that he's had. When that last 4 or 5 months, he had a heart attack and he was starting to go downhill. There was many things that we talked about, and not that it's ever nice that somebody dies, but there was no stone left unturned. There were things that he had done in years that aggravated me, that I was unhappy about, and he knew that. And I was able to express that to him. And he was able to give me some reasons, hey, this is why I did this. And sometimes he couldn't, and that was fine too. But we had a lot of conversation. For that, I thank God that we had that, because there's so many people that you just lose somebody and you didn't get a chance to say, not just I love you, but by the way, when you did this, I thought you were really a jerk.
Just as important,
right? So it was cool to have that. I was with him the night he passed away. About 3 a.m, I was asleep, but I will say I was in the room with him, and I got a cold chill, and I woke up. Now I don't know when he had passed away, but when I woke up, he had already passed away. And it seemed peaceful. So. I'm cool with everything that happened. We're all going to die. That's not that's probably you're growing up. That's something your parents maybe expressed to you. There's one thing for sure you're going to do. You're going to die. So it's things you accept. And,
it sounds like, especially for our generation, because I had a very complicated relationship with my parents, and it sounds like you had a good one. I mean, it sounds like you really lucked out for World War II generation parents.
I liked it because I knew where I stood. If they were disappointed in you, they told you they were disappointed. They didn't miss words.
Especially with 7 kids. That's like herding cats.
Yeah, and it was, correct. The nice thing was with 7 kids is that you could always make somebody mad and have people to talk to.
Yeah.
So, and so one of the questions was, what did we do for like family functions, or I forget exactly how it's phrased, but so one of the traditions I guess, that we had. We did try to get together Thanksgiving and Christmas. Those were two big holidays. Father's Day or Mother's Day, we'd always try to stop in but so you did have a lot of different ideas, and because my parents are willing to understand it, there are a lot of ideas out there. The 7 kids, sometimes there's 7 different opinions, and I think that's where you learn to, if you don't like the conversation, walk out of the room. It's really, you don't have to be in the middle of it. You don't have to take a stand. If it's not life and death, just walk out of the room.
What was your, looking back, whether you realized it or not at the time, what was your role in the family growing up? Were you more of a troublemaker, more of a peacemaker?
No, I think I was probably, with my mom and dad, I think I was more of a peacemaker. Because we had a family business and because there are 7 brothers and sisters, I had an older brother that could not work in the same room with my father without an argument. It just, they were so much alike, they just could not do it. My kids will know him as Uncle Matt. Yeah. And he was a good enough guy. He never, nothing was ever going to kill him. When he was 18, he went to the oil field. He ran away several times. But he ended up in the oil fields. And for an 18-year-old to grow up being a roughneck, there was nothing going to kill you, right? Well, cancer killed him. Cigarette smoking did kill him. And I try to remind my children, stop smoking. Because that will kill you.
Did he make peace with your dad the way you did?
No, they never did. He died a year before my dad, and they never got, they would just, it had to be a chemistry thing. They just could not sit in the same room and not have an argument. I've got a younger brother that, 2 younger brothers. I've got 3 older sisters, an older brother, and 2 younger brothers. And both my younger brothers, one is in construction, and he just finds he just finds a hard way to go, no matter what the case is. I love him to death. I hope someday things work out. My youngest brother, Sean, he came up. He was never going to get his hands dirty, and everybody knew that. But he's a very smart person, very book smart person, which I'm not. I can do anything with my hands, and you sit down and I've got to read through something, I will be asleep. But he and my mom were really close, and then after my mom passed away, he found a lot of good times, better times with my dad, which I was really glad to see that happen.
Did your dad think he was soft?
Yeah, so he's gay, and your dad, my dad,
different time.
You didn't understand any of that, and because you didn't understand it, you hated it.
Sure,
and at least my father did, and. My mother, to the day she died, swore that Sean was going to marry a nice girl and have kids. It's like, Mom, that's never going to happen. It is not him. And unfortunately, my brother kind of had to bear that because it was not him. But he's a great guy. And
isn't that amazing? Just one generation.
Yeah.
Had he been born 30 years later...
Exactly.
It's not easy for gay people still, but
right.
much better.
Much better. Right. The 18-year-old granddaughter, she changed her name from Savannah to Nico. She's identifies more as a male than as a female. But which would have drove my parents crazy. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't understand all of it. I don't, to me, because I grew up with my parents being one way. This is just how it is. Trying to learn that acceptance of, no, it is a lot of different ways. And come to terms with it. She's a great person. Again, will do very book smart, very, I don't want to say outspoken, but if you sit down with her, you'll know in 10 minutes where she stands on anything. It's a lot like my mom when it comes to that, but in a good way. And so, yeah,
you should be very proud, because being your age, growing up with a set of parents like you did, it's not a small thing to go from that to this age,
right?
And being as accepting of all of this as both you and I are. That's a tough putt.
Yeah, but I think when you asked earlier, did your parents? I think at least subliminally, maybe but in the background, my parents always wanted you to have your own opinion. Always wanted you to make up your own mind, be your own person. And I think a lot of that leap comes from that. That's all. It just so the son that is in construction, he grew up playing baseball. We moved out to Wright City 28 years ago. And because new custom homes were moving out that way, so you stay up with the market, right? Yeah. And that's what I ended up doing. But I've got some acreage on the front of the property that lays very flat. So about I think it was the third year that we were out there. My middle son, which is my oldest son, but he's the middle. So I have a 28-year-old son, the youngest. 35-year-old tomorrow. He turned 35 tomorrow. He's the one that brought me down today. And then my daughter, who will be 40 this year. So yeah, time flies, right?
You got started early.
And I am hugely proud of all of them. And growing up, because I didn't play sports, my son ended up loving when he was 7, 8 years old, and there's a whole story. He was attacked by a dog and had to spend a couple of summers inside, couldn't get out. So once he did get outside, I came home one day and he's throwing the baseball up in the air by himself. And he wanted to join a league out there, and a rec league. So we ended up got him on a team, and at the first year went by, and that second year we decided we needed a place because Wright City only has 2 baseball fields, and if you're a young team, you couldn't get on it. So I ended up putting a baseball field in my front yard. But the amount of fun that has been has been amazing, and both he and my younger son grew up playing baseball, and I knew zero about it. So for me, it was cool because I got to learn it as they learned it. And now he has a son that is playing baseball. He's 6 years old. This will be his 3rd year playing baseball. It's like, but
do you, regrets are tough.
Yeah.
But do you regret not playing sports and running around playing freeze tag and stuff like that, like other kids did?
So I don't. I will say this, and so once I turned, I guess it was about the time I turned 16, I was driving. Me and several friends were very interested in martial arts. So I started taking karate, I guess, when I was 16, about that time. And although it drove my dad crazy, why are you doing? We'd be roofing. It's like, hey, I got classes tonight. And after I got out of high school, and I did that for about 15 years, and went from taking it to instructing, and I always enjoyed it. It was a good break from the work. My daughter, I wish I could have did more of that with her. About the time we moved, I got away from everything down here, and it was just because it's not my job, so it always came last a lot of times, unless I was in a big enough. There was enough guys doing it that I didn't have to be there every night. So a lot of times I wasn't. But I enjoyed doing that. So it wasn't sports. It wasn't baseball, football, or basketball.
It was a hobby.
But it was something. And even though I got a lot of grief, my dad's like, why are you doing this? Because I enjoy it. For no other reason, I enjoy it.
I have to ask, you're a big man and you knew karate. Did you have to do a lot of bar fighting or
no? I'm not passive by any means, but I haven't had to do anything like that.
Yeah.
I've had rental properties for 40 years, and I've heard people talk about I have evicted people. It is the last resort, but nobody's ever said, hey, you can't.
Ever squared up on you?
Yeah.
What other than karate did you enjoy, either as a young person or through your 20s and 30s? What were your hobbies?
Really, the karate was the hobby. The work was kind of all encompassing. I like what I do. I really enjoyed. In fact, I went to Duchesne High School for my freshman and sophomore year, and then I switched to St. Charles High because they had a woodworking, and if you wanted to do college, Duchesne was the way to go. They could get you in, and I didn't. I really liked making things. In fact, you always had projects that you had to do. I would get my project done in a couple of weeks, and then I was helping everybody else for the next 4 weeks, to get to the end of the semester or the end of the quarter or whatever.
Well, it also sounds like you had a natural talent.
Yeah. Fortunately, when it came to that, I did. I wish I could have been more book smart, but and not that there is. I just enjoy doing that. I just enjoy building things and figuring through things. That's several of my clients. Although I did custom building, most of my clients that I worked for throughout the years have been business owners. I did more work for business owners, people own large cabinet companies to lumber yards. I took care of their personal homes. To this day, one of my clients had Arrowhead Building Supply and sold it, and now I take care of their personal the things that they needed. So, I mean, I've been fortunate to be maybe in the right areas. It's right the time they say a person makes a lot of their own luck. And I do believe that. I try to express that to my kids. You make a lot of what you're going to do in life, you're going to put yourself in those places. And so I have been fortunate for that.
And if you don't, someone else will do it for you.
Yeah, it's correct. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, again, it's the. I like to think that when everything's all said and done, that I tried to spend my time the best I could. One of the things we just got back this last weekend was opening day of trout season. For 22 years, I've been taking my kids down, my older son, and then years ago, my younger son, we'd go down. We'd spend the third week of March. I'd always get a couple of places down there. I'd take my dad and my sons, and we'd go down trout season for that week. And that was the only time we had. It's not like we went down 3 or 4 times a year. We went down that time because that's when I could get away usually. The spring market hasn't hit yet, but I could get away and do that. And baseball hadn't really started up yet. And so we were down this last week. My son rented a Airbnb. Both my boys went, and several of their friends went because now they have kids. One does, the other one we're working on, and as we're standing down there Saturday night. We're standing there by the fire, and my son John says, "Dad, I just want to thank you for bringing us down here all these years." And it was just cool. It was just cool. I don't even know how I replied. It was just, it took me by surprise. It was a really cool moment. And when my dad, in that last several months, several times he said, "Man, I wish we could just go to Montauk one more time." Mm-hmm. And that was just cool. I mean, it was just, so I guess sometimes you get feedback on, hey, you got that right.
Yeah.
Right? And it was nice to have that. Yeah. And it was, like I said, I don't even know how I answered John when he said that. That it really, it was a great feeling.
Yeah.
You know.
You need, I'm not sure how many years you need, but you need some road under your wheels to have perspective. You just do.
Yeah.
There aren't many wise 20-year-olds. Right? And it took me a long time to grow up and mature and get some wisdom. But you realize that you said many true things, that you make your own luck, you make your own way. Just this morning, as I was getting ready to come in, I was thinking about sending a text to the kids, basically saying, and it would have been one of those texts they rolled their eyes at.
Yeah, right.
But it was basically saying, you got to fight. Life will kick you in the nuts.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Yeah.
And it's so important to keep fighting for each other, for yourself.
Right.
Like, and I'm sure you've experienced that in your life many times.
Yeah. I think everybody who's, obviously you've done well in what you do it well.
Thank you.
I've listened to you, like I said, since you were on 97.1. I don't catch every show, but I do try.
I appreciate it.
And it's yeah. Sometimes it is just being at the right place at the right time.
Amen.
But it's all the things you do before that. One thing with my dad, never really understanding the whole sports thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you got these guys out here, and I'd be out, you know, on a Sunday, and we'd be out in the front yard, you know, on the ball diamond, and it's the things that we did that day, they were going to use that week. It's going to come up at some point in the game, and that's what life to me was always about. The things you learn, it's going to come up in the game somewhere. You better know. You better have an answer for it. So baseball was kind of a cool thing that it just really, it's played a lot. We've been, like I say, I've got a grandson that comes up, that would be coming up now. So, and it was 2005, the first year that I sponsored a team, and we in the newspaper wrote up the Field of Dreams, you know, building, they will come. And we have everything but bleachers and a Hooters, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's been really cool. But I think it's along the way, it teaches your kids how to learn. It gives them some discipline. It gives them an understanding that, guess what, you can work your ass off, and somebody else is going to come along and get a better hit.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's unfair. It's just how it is.
Yeah.
You know, you get down and stay down, or you can get back up.
That was my favorite thing about sports. I learned, I played sports my whole life through college, and I learned more from coaches than I did teachers.
Right.
I was never much of an academic kid early on. And I remember one time being in doubles practice in football on an August day, and it's 100 degrees at 8 in the morning, and we're doing hit-its, and my mouth's full of dust. And I thought, screw this.
Right.
I'm wasting my time. And I started to walk off the field, and Coach Bill Smith never looked up. He just had his clipboard, and as I walked by him, he said, "You'll regret it the rest of your life."
Wow.
And I turned around and went back.
Yeah.
That's all he had to say.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
Because you knew.
I knew.
Yeah, you just knew.
I knew before he said it, but him saying it, I'm like,
right.
He's right.
It's that reinforcement.
Yeah.
That you just need sometimes. Sometimes you just got to grow back on, man.
So I don't have grandkids. I hope I do.
Oh, yeah.
But tell me about it. How's that been?
Grandkids are wonderful. Like I say, my daughter has 2 daughters that are both great people. My son has a 6-year-old little boy who is very... he's conscious of other people in the room, man. I mean, he's respectful of people. He is just a super good heart. He's competitive. And my son and I was talking on the way down because they had practice. Practice starts, already in the spring. And he's like, yeah, Colton is a really a competitive demeanor, but he's just kind of calm about it. He knows he's competitive, but he doesn't have to be the jerk about it. And that's really, I think, cool. Now, he has a daughter, Bailey, and Bailey is 3. And he showed me this morning, they were at the facilities, and she had a ball, and she was throwing it back, and she had her glove in one hand, the ball, and she's throwing it back. And I told John, I go, man, nobody ever better crowd to play it with her. She will hit them. She will knock them down. And she reminds me a lot of my mom, who at one point during her high school days threw a no-hitter.
Wow.
And so I mean it's so cool to watch your kids raise their kids and get it right. And what I think they're getting it right. My son, John, spends a lot of time with his son with the baseball thing and trying not to. He was telling me this morning, so remember this, Colton, your dad was trying to stay out of the picture. John was, everybody, they had the team, they were doing the team practice, and a lot of dads would get up right up to the net when their kid is up to hit, and John's like, man, it takes a lot, but I'm just trying to stay back and not. This is time he needs to get from his coach, not from me. And John coached, him and Devin coached several teams for 10 years. So to not coach in that time, when you see your son did not say something, has got to be. I said I couldn't do it, and I knew nothing, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah, Yeah.
So it's cool to see that they're getting that right, and so if they make it, the thing with the baseball, it was a way to get. Wright City has nothing as far as they had nothing when we went out there. As far as really, they had some sports, baseball. Now they've got soccer and some other things, and it's expanded. But there's not a lot of things for kids to do. They can't just drive down to the whatever. And I was going to say arcade, but nobody has arcades anymore. But there's no big mall or anything to hang out at. So the sports thing was a way to get everybody to be a part of something that was different from just the family. And from that, I think it's taught both the sons how to get along either in business or just working with other people. And, hey, everybody is going to have a different opinion. And by the way, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a wall or just take a stand. If you have an opinion and you want to stand by it. If you feel it's worth the conversation, but yeah,
it's okay. Grab it.
But yeah, it has been. By the way, that's mine.
Did your adult love of baseball with the kids translate into like Cardinals and things like that?
It has, but so love the Cardinals. They're a hometown team, right? What is nice, and every night, so I do listen to Wheeler. I heard that yesterday. That was fun. But that gives me a chance. So I do like to hear that, and my sons both listen to ESPN radio. That's nonstop.
Yeah, mine too.
I'm sorry.
Mine too.
Oh, okay. So the thing for me is that I think what that's done is it's given me a conversation with them.
Yeah.
That's not business.
Common, yeah.
You know, it's not, I don't have to go. John and I could sit down and talk about construction all day long. It's that chance that, the deal with the pitchers, and I don't remember everybody's name. But just kind of knowing what's going on a little bit with spring training, who's pitching, who's not pitching, and I can have that conversation with them and relate a little bit. Yeah, so don't really care for some of the things that's going on with the Cardinals right now, but I don't have a dog in the hunt. I don't. It's not
life and death.
It's not right. It's not life and death.
Yeah.
So I take that for what it's worth. And
well, speaking of life and death, to the extent you're comfortable, can you tell me about some of the difficulties you've had? Things that were tough to get through, and
so I would say, fortunately, so when I was 22, I bought a piece of property there in St. Charles, a lot. It was the guy I bought it from was an older gentleman, and I got the paperwork, everything. I knew I had to get it rezoned because I wanted to build a duplex on it, and it was zoned R1. I needed to zone it R2, so I went through. I had to get about 6 months of different planning and zoning meetings with the city planning and zoning director. And the first time I'm 22, and I walk in this guy's office, the first thing he tells me is, I'm not bending over for anybody. And out of the blue, I'm like, you don't have to bend over. I'm just telling you, when I get done, you're going to be able to get taxes off this property you can't get now. And from there on, everything went a whole lot easier. For me, that was a lot of growing up time because you're at 21, 22. Mm-hmm. Things weren't bad. I was working, but I knew I wanted to get into the rental business. I knew that I was getting a heck of a deal on this property, so I ended up building that building. Got the rezoning and variances I needed. The going through the city council was one of those deals that the mayor it was his last night, the first night I showed up to get this, try to get it through the city, and they tabled it the first night. And as I'm going back, he walked around the desk and said, "Hey, follow me outside." So we went out into the hallway, and he's like, "Look," he goes, "when you're going to come back up here, and the next time you come up, you're going to call every one of these council members, and you're going to know their answer before that question comes up. And you call them at 6 at night when they get home. If they don't answer, call them at 8 at night. If they don't answer, call them at 10 at night. Stay on it till you get an answer from them." And I did that, and man, and it was at you're 22, and look, I just want to be taken serious. This is serious money to me. Take me serious. If you have a problem with it, and I did end up meeting a couple of people out, and look, there's trash on this lot. When I get done, this won't be. So yeah, from the business standpoint, it was some things like that were difficult because you got a lot on the line when you're 22, and everything matters when you're 22, right? Some of the other things, as you're going through, I've been very fortunate with health. 2 years ago, I ended up with prostate cancer. And the surgeon called me the day that they did the biopsy, called me and said, look, we're going to take your prostate out. We need to get this done. You're going to die. There is no we can do other. This has to be done this way. And
what was that like? Hearing those words.
So again, I've always been pretty healthy. I mean, everybody has their minor problems. I've always been really healthy, and to have somebody turn around and go, look, this has to happen or you are going to die. It was you better get your stuff together. It was one of those moments where you go, holy shit, what do I do? So then you start and you try to get your stuff together. The plus side of it was it's amazing the things that they can do these days. Medicine is wonderful. I had a really good staff that a group of doctors that I got to work with. Everybody was great to work with. It's kind of surreal from the standpoint of like, I don't feel like I'm going to die. So but then, and once they did the prostatectomy and thankfully I didn't have to do chemo, 48 radiation treatments. They put me on an experimental drug for a year. Everything looks way better. So yeah, and I kind of equated it in my head anyways, that last couple of months before my dad passed away, I was able to say the things that did get unsaid at times. And I didn't want that with my kids. I wanted them to know, hey, yes, I love you. And yes, by the way, what you're doing, I don't understand it at times. But also, hey, I'm proud of the person you are, which, like you were saying earlier, how great is it to be able to turn around and look your kid in the eye and go, hey, I'm proud of what you're doing. I'm proud of the person you become, and truly am. And if that's the legacy, whatever that happens, then I'm cool with that. That's great.
There's not much more.
No, because you hand it to the next one, right? Which that's what our parents did. They handed their ideas and their beliefs and then what you did with it went translated to what you did.
Yeah.
And then what you're handing to your kids, it's going to translate into what they do.
Yeah. They're not going to be little carbon copies of you.
Yeah. I like that. I like the fact that, I can sit down in a room and have a difference of opinion and know that when I walk out of the room, at least they know how I feel, and I'm not going to get that SOB, or that, which they may. I don't know. I doubt it, but I think at the end of the day, I've been fortunate to have the experiences with my kids that I have.
So we both have more time behind us than ahead.
Right.
What do you still want to do?
I like to play golf and fish. And I probably won't ever really retire. I don't look forward to retire. I know there's people that say, man, I can't wait till I turn 65. I don't look forward to retirement.
Me too.
I want to be relevant. I want to be relevant in my kids' lives more than anything. If I can drive my grandkids crazy, that's cool. I can do that. It's personally, I don't know if I have any big things that I'd like to do. I mean, I'd love to take a trip. The lady that I'm seeing, we'd love to go to Italy. Talked about that for a while now. And at some point, I'd like to do that. As far as any big endeavors business-wise, I'm comfortable with where I'm at there. I stay busy. We stay busy, busier than I need to. The phone call, right? But the people that I do work for, I know they appreciate what I do, and so I don't have to. I don't feel like I have to achieve anything more there. I want to do the best I can for the people I take care of, and that's I think the business will take care of itself then. I'd love to see my grandkids, if they go to college, make it through college. If they go at least to trade school, I'd like to see that. I think you need to have a direction in life, wherever that takes you. And college isn't for everybody, but I just want to see them succeed and be a decent person. And I don't know, I think that they all have parents that will help them do that, which I kind of feel like I had a little bit to do with.
You bet.
Right?
You bet.
Yeah.
Anything that I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about that you'd like to get out there?
Really, at this point in my life, I want the kids to know, I am proud of all of them, and I do love all of them, and I want them at the end of the day, I want them to be happy. I guess that's one of the important things to me, and there's always been, and I feel like I got that from both my parents, is that at the end of the day, you have to be happy with the outcome, and the things that are important. Not everything is going to have a great outcome. Obviously, we all know that, but at least a direction in which you're going, and do the best you can every day. And if that's it. If that's all you can do, then you're the only person you're going to answer to. Yeah. You know whether you did the best you could do or not. So.
Well, I've only known you an hour, but you've done great.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Good, solid man.
We all try.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This has been a privilege.
Well, I really enjoyed the fact that you guys are doing this, and that I was able to get with you on it.
I'm glad.
I say I've listened to you and it's like, and there are some days it's like, well, I don't know about that day, but for the most part, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. You give them hell.
These doing these have been great. I have a natural curiosity about people and just hearing people's lives. And we're very similar, but we're very different.
Right.
I was directionless. Like when you say at 22, everything matters, nothing mattered when I was 22. It took me a long time to find my way. And it just seems like you were sort of born a grown-up. You've...
So I don't know if I think part of that was just I watched my parents work hard. Mm-hmm. I watched my grandfather had the farm. Mm-hmm. My dad worked on the farm and then also had a construction company and was actually running the farm while he had a construction company. And so I really got to see the what can be the fruits of your labor. My parents, at the last 10 years, probably 20 years of their lives, they did a lot of traveling. Bought an RV, and they went to Vegas a lot. They would leave in January. January 2nd was their wedding anniversary. They'd leave in January, and they'd come back about the end of March. And once we started going to Montauk, about the middle of March, he'd come back, and we'd go down there for a week. And so I got to see the good things in that too. It's not just work hard, but they say, about people who are workaholics, and I don't think I'm necessarily a workaholic, but I really do love what I do. And so that's been a great help. And I guess that's kind of the thing with the kids. If they do anything to do what you like, if you really want to try something, go try it. And you might love it, you might hate it, but if it's meant for you, you're going to do good.
I haven't met many people doing these stories or in my life where there's a more direct line between your grandparents and your grandkids. That's interesting and impressive.
Yeah, I do love to sit and talk to people. One of the nice things about what I've done is I've always got a chance to, not only if I'm building a house for somebody, you get to know them after 3 or 4 months. There's not a lot. This is their most stressful time in their life, and sometimes they tell you way more than you want to know. but it's that you just, for you to sit down and talk to somebody and to stay interested. And I will say I do appreciate that, because in my head, I guess I kind of figured, we'd come down not knowing the format or anything else. You would ask a question, I'd give an answer, and then that would be. But I don't feel like that's been this way at all. It's been a nice conversation. I do appreciate that.
Thank you, buddy.
So
yeah, I'm glad to know you.
Well, yeah, it was great to meet you, and I'm sure I'll be listening to you.
Yeah.
So at 1:00, know that somebody out there on a construction site turns their radio on.
I'll say hey to you today.
Yeah.
Well, good luck in the future.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, and no, I appreciate it. It's been wonderful, guys.
Good. Thank you.
Yep.